I never believed age mattered. Until I met the woman who changed my life. She was 13 years older than me. Elegant, powerful, completely out of my league. Every man in New York wanted her. But everyone knew the same rule. Never fall in love with Isabella Carter. My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm 25 years old. 3 years ago, I arrived in Manhattan with 2 suitcases, a worn-out laptop, and exactly $387 in my bank account. After months of rejection, Carter Developments finally offered me a position as a junior architect. People said it was the opportunity of a lifetime. They were right. On my first morning, I stood nervously outside the executive conference room, rehearsing my introduction. Then, the door suddenly opened. A woman walked out. She wore a perfectly tailored black dress beneath a long beige trench coat. Her dark brown hair rested softly over one shoulder. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She didn't need to. Confidence followed her like perfume. Everyone around us immediately stood up. "Good morning, Miss Carter." She acknowledged them with a slight nod. Then, she stopped in front of me. "You must be Daniel." I blinked. "You know my name?" She smiled. "I read every resume before hiring someone." Her voice was calm, warm, confident. She extended her hand. "I'm Isabella Carter, the CEO." I shook her hand. For just a second, I forgot how to breathe. Her smile was subtle, but unforgettable. "Welcome to Carter Developments. I hope you're ready to work harder than you've ever worked before." "I am." She studied my eyes for a moment, then smiled. "We'll see." As she walked away, I realized everyone in the building respected her. Some feared her. Others admired her. But no one truly knew her. Over the next 6 months, my career changed completely. I worked 16-hour days. She noticed. One evening, long after everyone else had gone home, she stopped beside my desk. "You haven't eaten dinner." I laughed. I didn't notice. She placed a paper bag on my desk. Inside was a hot sandwich and a bottle of water. "You can't build skyscrapers if you forget to take care of yourself." I looked up. "You bought this." She smiled. "You work for me. That makes your health my responsibility." She walked away before I could answer. It was such a small gesture. Yet no one had cared about me like that in years. From then on, late nights became normal. Sometimes we'd work until midnight. Sometimes we'd sit on the rooftop overlooking the city, drinking coffee, talking about architecture, travel, and life outside the office. She wasn't the intimidating CEO everyone feared. She laughed icily. She loved jazz music. She secretly painted landscapes whenever she felt stressed. And she hated eating alone. One rainy Friday night, we stayed later than usual. A thunderstorm covered Manhattan. The streets below disappeared beneath sheets of rain. She looked out the window. "I guess we're trapped." I smiled. "I don't mind." Neither did she. The office became strangely quiet. Only the sound of the rain remained. She removed her high heels. She rubbed her tired feet. For the first time, she looked less like a billionaire CEO and more like an ordinary woman. "You know," she said softly, "everyone thinks having money means you never feel lonely." I looked at her. "Is that true?" She smiled sadly. "I own buildings all over the country, but some nights, I go home to an empty apartment." Her words stayed with me. Without thinking, I walked to the office kitchen. 10 minutes later, I returned with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She laughed. "I haven't had hot chocolate since college." Then tonight seemed like a good night. She accepted the mug. Our fingers brushed. For only a second. But somehow, that single touch felt louder than the thunder outside. She looked into my eyes. Then she quickly looked away. Neither of us said another word. Because deep down, we both knew something dangerous had just begun. The rain didn't stop for another hour. Neither of us seemed eager to leave. Isabella stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights blur through the rain. "You know what I miss the most?" she asked quietly. I looked at her. "Being treated like a normal woman." Her words surprised me. "Everyone sees the CEO," she continued. "No one sees Isabella." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I smiled. "I see Isabella." She turned toward me. For the first time since I had met her, she looked nervous. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" "Because people always leave." I frowned. "Who left you?" She let out a slow breath. "My husband." The room fell silent. I was married 12 years. He loved my company more than he loved me. When he couldn't control it, he found someone younger. The pain in her voice was impossible to ignore. "I'm sorry." She forced a smile. I survived. But I stopped believing love was real. Without thinking, I stepped closer. "Maybe you just believed the wrong person." Our eyes met. For a second, It felt like the rest of the world had disappeared. Then her phone rang. The moment was gone. She looked at the screen. Her expression changed instantly. Excuse me. She walked out onto the balcony to answer the call. Through the glass, I saw her arguing with someone. When she returned, her face had lost all its warmth. Everything okay? She nodded too quickly. Just business. I knew she was lying. The next morning, the company buzzed with gossip. Did you hear? The board wants Isabella replaced. They say investors don't trust her anymore. I couldn't believe it. She had built the company from nothing. Now they wanted to take it away. Later that afternoon, I found her alone in the design studio. She was staring at the original blueprint of the company's very first building. My father drew this, she whispered. He started this company in a garage. I promised him I'd protect it. You will. She looked at me. What makes you so sure? Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. She smiled softly. Then something happened that neither of us expected. She reached out and gently fixed my crooked tie. You never wear these properly. I laughed. I've never been good at ties. No, she whispered. But you're very good at making me smile. Our faces were only inches apart. Neither of us moved. For a heartbeat, I thought she was going to kiss me. Instead, she stepped back. We can't do this. Daniel, I'm your boss, and I'm 13 years older than you. I looked straight into her eyes. I don't care. She smiled sadly. One day, you might. Then she walked away. I stood there, watching her disappear down the hallway. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of losing my job. I was afraid of losing her. The next morning, something felt different. Isabella didn't smile when she walked into the office. She didn't stop by my desk. She didn't even look in my direction. The woman who had shared hot chocolate with me only hours earlier had built a wall between us. Around noon, my manager called everyone into the conference room. The board of directors will be visiting tomorrow. Every employee straightened in their chairs. The board rarely came to headquarters. That meant only one thing. Something was wrong. Late that evening, I noticed Isabella's office light was still on. I knocked softly. Come in. She was sitting alone, staring at a stack of legal documents. Dark circles surrounded her beautiful hazel eyes. She looked exhausted. I brought you dinner. She looked up. You really need to stop doing that. Why? Because every time you do, it becomes harder to keep my distance. Silence filled the room. I finally asked the question that had been haunting me. Why are you pushing me away? She stood and slowly walked toward the window. My ex-husband is back. My chest tightened. He wants the company. He already has investors on the board. If they remove me as CEO, everything my father built will disappear. I stepped beside her. Then we'll fight. She smiled sadly. You still think this story has a happy ending? I know it does. She looked into my eyes for several seconds, as if she wanted to believe me. The following day, the board meeting turned into a battlefield. 12 directors sat around a long glass table. At the far end, sat a man wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit. His name was Adrian Walker, Isabella's ex-husband. He smiled the moment he saw me. So, this is the young architect everyone keeps talking about. His voice dripped with arrogance. I ignored him. The chairman cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, the board has concerns regarding your recent leadership. Adrian leaned back. I believe it's time the company had new leadership. I watched Isabella remain perfectly calm. She never raised her voice, never lost control. But I could see the pain hidden behind her eyes. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the meeting. Something didn't make sense. Adrian knew details about confidential company projects. Someone inside the company was feeding him information. I stayed late, searching through project files. Around midnight, I found them. Thousands of confidential documents had been copied from Isabella's computer. The transfers came from one employee's account, Richard Mason, the chief financial officer. He had been secretly working with Adrian for months. I immediately rushed toward Isabella's office. She was just about to leave. What happened? I handed her the files. She read them in silence. Her hands started trembling. I trusted him. For the first time, I saw tears roll down her cheeks. Without thinking, I wrapped my arms around her. She didn't pull away. Instead, she rested her head against my chest. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The only sound was her quiet breathing. Then she whispered, I'm scared, Daniel. I gently lifted her chin. You don't have to face this alone anymore. She looked at me, closer than ever before. Her eyes moved to my lips, then back to my eyes. For one unforgettable moment, it felt like she was about to kiss me. But the office door suddenly burst open. Ms. Carter. It was Vanessa. She looked terrified. The board has called an emergency vote. They're removing you as CEO tomorrow morning. Isabella closed her eyes. Everything she had spent 20 years building was about to be taken away. And for the first time, I realized saving the woman I loved would cost me everything. The boardroom was silent. 12 directors sat around the polished oak table. At the head of the room, Adrian Walker smiled like he'd already won. Across from him, Isabella stood alone. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked tired, not weak, just exhausted. The chairman adjusted his glasses. Shall we begin the vote? I pushed the boardroom doors open. Not yet. Every head turned toward me. Adrian smirked. I'm sorry. This meeting is for executives only. I ignored him. Instead, I walked straight to the large screen and plugged a flash drive into the projector. Isabella looked confused. Danielle, what are you doing? I promised you we'd fight. The projector came to life. Hundreds of confidential emails filled the screen. Bank transfers, secret contracts, private messages. Every single one connected Adrian to Richard Mason. The CFO had been secretly selling company information for almost a year. The room exploded with shocked voices. One director slammed his hand onto the table. You've been stealing from this company. Richard's face turned white. It isn't what it looks like. It looks exactly like corporate fraud, another director replied. Adrian suddenly stood. This proves nothing. I smiled. It proves enough. I pressed one final button. A hidden security recording appeared. The room watched in complete silence as Adrian offered Richard $2 million in exchange for confidential company files. No one spoke. The evidence was undeniable. Security entered the room moments later. Richard was escorted out first. Adrian tried to leave. 2 officers stopped him at the door. Mr. Walker, you're going to need to come with us. For the first time, the man who believed he controlled everyone looked terrified. As the doors closed behind him, the chairman slowly stood. He looked at Isabella. Ms. Carter, the board owes you an apology. We unanimously vote to keep you as CEO. The room filled with applause. I looked toward Isabella. She wasn't looking at the board. She was looking at me. Tears filled her beautiful eyes. That evening, the entire company celebrated on the rooftop. Employees laughed. Music played softly. The Manhattan skyline glittered beneath the stars. One by one, everyone left, until only Isabella and I remained. She walked toward me, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. I've spent 20 years building this company. She smiled. But today, you saved everything. I shook my head. No, you built something worth saving. The wind gently moved her hair across her face. Without thinking, I brushed a loose strand behind her ear. She didn't move away. Instead, she stepped closer. So, she whispered, does this mean you're still willing to work for me? I laughed softly. I was hoping we'd stop talking about work. She smiled. The kind of smile that reaches someone's soul. You've changed my life, Daniel. No, I replied quietly. You changed mine the day you believed in me. For several long seconds, neither of us spoke. The city seemed to disappear. It was just the 2 of us. She slowly reached for my hand. Her fingers intertwined with mine. I've spent years convincing myself I was too old, too damaged, to be loved again. I gently lifted her chin. I never fell in love with your age. I fell in love with your heart. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She smiled through it. I love you, Daniel. I smiled back. I've loved you for a long time. She leaned closer. I met her halfway, under the glowing lights of Manhattan, with the cool night breeze around us. We shared our first kiss. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, gentle, and everything we'd both been waiting for. When we finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine and laughed softly. I guess my employees are going to gossip tomorrow. I laughed. Let them. They deserve a happy story for once. 6 months later, the company had become stronger than ever. I was promoted to head of architecture, and every Friday evening, after the office emptied, Isabella and I still sat on the rooftop together, sharing hot chocolate, watching the city lights, and planning a future we never thought we'd have. Sometimes, the greatest love story begins when 2 people stop listening to what the world expects and start listening to what their hearts already know.